Hello and welcome. Brat Pack is a 5-issue series entirely written and illustrated by Rick Veitch. It was published in 1991 by Tundra Publishing. On the list of titles that take apart and openly criticize the superhero genre, there are two that stand out: Martial Law and Brat Pack. On the surface, both seem to be a meta-commentary on the grim and gritty era of the genre. Decades later, The Boys by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson would spitefully tread this familiar, critical territory. Of the three titles, Brat Pack by Rick Veitch is, arguably, the most cynical, the most unrestrained, and the most brutal. However, its commentary isn't restricted to the violent trend seen in the late 80s. Brat Pack encompasses the history of exploitation in the medium, more specifically, the exploitation of the young characters and the young audience reading this material. It's a series driven by the anger of the creator. In fact, Veitch started this series shortly after quitting Swamp Thing over capricious corporate interference. Briefly, issue number 88 of Swamp Thing was plotted and written by Veitch. The plot summary and the final script was given editorial approval. However, during the penciling stage, DC got cold feet. Within the issue in question, Swamp Thing meets Jesus Christ on the cross. Due to the recent outrage over the movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, DC wanted to avoid similar controversy. The script and the artwork were subsequently shelved. As a result, Veitch quit the title and began to work on Brat Pack. As a brief side note, Brat Pack was originally proposed to DC. It was to be a miniseries for the newly established Piranha Press. Obviously, with Veitch quitting DC, the series moved along with him. The project took on a slightly different shape than the original proposal, although the core of the premise and the bulk of the characters seem to have remained intact. End of side note. Also contributing to the cynicism of Brat Pack was the call-in vote deciding Robin's fate during the storyline Death in the Family. This is represented in the opening scene of Brat Pack. A radio show host invites callers to vote on whether kid sidekicks should be killed or spared. Unknowingly, the caller that inspired this vote was Dr. Blasphemy, the antagonist of the series. Unfortunately, he will act on the results of this impromptu poll. Brat Pack doesn't attack the superhero genre in general, it also attacks the transparently sadistic predilection of the audience that craves this type of entertainment. This is the dirty, secret elephant in the room of superhero comic book fandom. Subconsciously, the audience enjoys the ongoing misery of these heroes. In fact, they kind of crave it. After all, a hero can't overcome adversity until they've been beaten and battered and ready to give up. We may cheer for them when they rise to the challenge and overcome an obstacle, but at the same time, if we're being a little honest with ourselves, there is a dark part of our monkey brains that kind of enjoys seeing these costume men and women struggle. This element is gently implied in the story. It's one of the few points Veitch makes that is somewhat subtle within the series. Brat Pack is, at its core, a pointed attack on the business of superheroes, and very specifically, the exploitation of kid sidekicks in the medium. It explores how the genre exists to create ancillary products like movies, t-shirts, toys, and other worthless junk. The success of a character isn't necessarily the content of their character, but rather the merchandise that character manages to sell. It also talks around the exploitation of these characters and their creators by unseen corporate entities. These corporate entities are slightly personified by the adult superheroes who take in these young people, indoctrinate them, and then force them to sign contracts to exploit their worth. Overall, the series is designed to get the audience to acknowledge that the business of superheroes is rather deplorable. It exists to take advantage of the characters and the creative talent. Additionally, the audience is somewhat culpable and equally exploited because they buy the comics and toys, watch the movies, and encourage superheroes' ongoing miserable existence with their money. As for the plot of Brat Pack, the sidekicks of 4 popular superheroes confront the villain, Dr. Blasphemy. They fail and end up very, very dead. Following the death of their sidekicks, the adult superheroes recruit new sidekicks to train. The series then documents the brutality these sidekicks endure to live out the superhero dream. Now, the 4 popular superheroes are all analogies to mainstream superheroes. Midnight Mink is very clearly a 60s-era campy Batman. Furthermore, he's the extreme Frederick Wortham predator as suggested in Seduction of the Innocent. Moon Mistress is Wonder Woman. Again, she's an extreme version of the character, one who loathes men and their weakness in the face of her physical attributes. Rat is Green Arrow with a touch of the worst qualities of Iron Man. Judge Jury is some combination of a racist Judge Dredd and an even more racist Punisher. In actuality, Veitch based him on an extreme version of Captain America. All of these characters and their sidekicks have their personality traits amped up to 11. They embody these traits so much that they transform from being a simple parody of specific characters into being a pointed satire of the superhero genre itself. They are archetypes of popular superheroes with the pretense of do-gooding stripped away. They are fraudulent, self-serving, and utterly amoral. The antagonist of the series, Dr. Blasphemy, may be the most well-designed character of all time. He wears a black, form-fitting suit, topped off with a bondage mask. The symbols on his chest are notoriously used in comics to denote a swear word. The exclamation mark is perfectly positioned over his crotch. With this placement, the exclamation mark points to and symbolizes the very thing it simultaneously censors. That is, ladies and gentlemen, next-level meta-design. In my opinion, Dr. Blasphemy also somewhat personifies us, the audience. Perhaps more specifically, he is the hardcore comic fans of the era. He watches, he judges, he shows contempt for the very thing he adores. He wants these heroes to succeed, and he wants them to rise above their flaws, yet all he feels is constant disappointment when they lapse into the stereotypes that made them successful. The slogan, "Live fast, love hard, die with your mask on," is a play on the lyrics to the song "Live Fast, Love Hard, Die Young" by the singer-songwriter Farron Young, although the song has been covered by a few others since its debut in 1955. Notably, the ads for the Dr. Blasphemy t-shirt all use popular icons who died before their time. So it's an iconic t-shirt design that's being modeled by dead icons. There is a lot of objectionable slang in the comic book that really stands out in these woke times. Unfortunately, it is appropriate for the era, and it does fit the characters in that context. But if you get triggered easily, especially by rampant homophobia and racism, you might want to skip this series. It's an extreme snapshot of the social attitude of the time, and it isn't a very flattering one at all. The inappropriate relationship between Chippy and Midnight Mink, which reflects the allegations made by Frederick Wortham in Seduction of the Innocent, is a touch too loud and repetitive in places. It's a connection that didn't quite need constant attention drawn to it. The same applies to the attitude of the other sidekicks towards Chippy. Certainly, it's within character, but again, it's the frequency that becomes a touch tiresome in places. The weakness of Brat Pack is the fact that the story doesn't really go anywhere. It does a great job of establishing the characters before it folds back in on itself and then stops. It appears that an apocalyptic event is about to occur, but then it concludes somewhat ambiguously. Even Veitch admits he's disappointed in how the series originally ended, and in subsequent printings of the story, he's fine-tuned the ending to be more coherent. The updated version, which is available with extra pages inserted to flesh it out, is included in the 2018 reprint by IDW. This version has the most concise, satisfying conclusion. Incidentally, this version has a superior reproduction of the artwork. The gray tones and hues are lush, and suitably both gorgeous and filthy. In other words, it looks like it should. Slumberg in particular comes alive as a grimy metropolitan center. Brat Pack is part of what is known as the King Hell Heroica. This is a series of 5 books that document the life of the Maximortal and the history of the comic book industry. Despite being published first in 1990, Brat Pack is actually the 4th book in the overall saga. Slightly more confusing are the Brat Pack and the Maximortal Super Specials, published in 1996 and 1997. Chronologically, they occur after Brat Pack, but within the King Hell Heroica saga, they are intended to be read before the events in Brat Pack. These super specials act as a bridge between books and explore the nature of the Maximortal and their connection to Dr. Blasphemy, the only human to ever conquer the Maximortal. The actual timeline of events looks like this. Brat Pack Maximortal Super Special No. 1, The Maximortal. Brat Pack Maximortal Super Special No. 2, Boy Maximortal. Brat Pack Maximortal Super Special No. 3, True Man, the Maximortal. Brat Pack Maximortal Super Special No. 4, Brat Pack. The final book is currently untitled, but it will include all of the super specials and a final battle between Maximortal and the antagonist El Guano. So, unless one is interested in the overall King Hell Heroica story, the super specials aren't required reading. Brat Pack works fine on its own. It is its own self-contained story. In the end, Brat Pack is a coherent, angry piece of work, that deconstructs the filthy business of an industry built on exploitation of both its talent and its complicit audience.